So how was JordanCon?
It was delightful. I met a lot of people that I'd talked to online, and so got to see them in person for the first time. That was wonderful. And went to some panels. I went to a Doctor Who panel, in fact.
What?
Drank a lot. My liver is maybe a little unhappy with me, probably.
I'm shocked.
What do you do at a convention if not drink?
Go to panels and spend money.
I was going to say I didn't spend a lot of money, but that's not true. I bought a lot of books because JordanCon had some great authors attending this year. So bought lots of books. Did have to check my suitcase on the way home because I had so many books.
That's a sign of a good convention.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. I'm looking forward to next year. Quick plug of the other podcast that I'm on, Tarvalon Talks. We will at some point be having an episode out recapping our experience at JordanCon, recorded live from JordanCon because we were all there.
Well, welcome back to Fiction Fans, a podcast where we read books and other words too. I'm Lily.
And I'm Sarah, and I would argue that everyone on Tarvalon Talks does read books, or at least one series of books.
That's just our tagline, right?
Yeah, but the way you said it.
Well, has anything else great happened recently, or was that your good thing?
No, that was my good thing.
Well, it was a good thing, so.
Yes, indeed. What was your good thing?
I really should have thought of this beforehand.
Yes, you probably should have. You knew this question was coming.
I had extra time today and everything. I made hummus.
Are we going to leave in all of this dead space?
No, I'll just let the listener imagine how long it took for me to come up with that. I tried making hummus, not for the first time, but I would say for the first successful time.
Oh, nice. What was different about this attempt versus your previous attempts?
The blender.
Ah.
Much, much better blender.
That does make a difference.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't put enough flavoring in it, like, garlic and lemon juice and stuff, so it was a little bland, but you can kind of mix that in afterwards, so it's fine.
Yeah.
And I would say for I'm going to call it first legitimate attempt, because, oh my god, the first time I actually tried to do it, my blender was such a piece of shit. It could not spin enough to actually move the contents. So there were just pockets of whole garbanzo beans.
Oh no.
So I definitely went timid on this one because I was like, I don't know if this is going to work out. But it did. So I've been eating a lot of hummus this week, and that's nice.
That's very nice.
Mm-hmm. Read any good books lately? No. What are you drinking tonight? Oh god, how long has it been since we've done this?
Too long, clearly, if you're forgetting our order. I know that I told you in our Discord chat that I was going to drink wine, but there was a fire at work, not a literal fire, but
fire drill,
a metaphorical fire at work at 3:30 that consumed 3.5 hours of my life, almost, 3.5 hours. And by the end of that, I was so brain dead. I was like, I cannot fathom opening this bottle of wine because it's not a screw top. I'm just going to have cider.
Oh no. When just a cork defeats you, that's a bad day.
Yeah.
That's why they invented canned wine.
I know, but I don't have any canned wine.
Well, that's a you problem.
It is a me problem.
Also in our Discord chat, when we were discussing at length what beverages we would be having tonight, because that's the kind of prep work we do.
Yep.
I was pontificating on whether I wanted a lemonade iced tea or if I wanted something boozy. And then I realized I don't have to choose. So I did include some vodka in my iced tea and lemonade, and it's quite nice.
Nice.
I'm kind of living on the edge drinking black tea this late at night, but I'm a rebel. What can I say?
I'll message you tomorrow morning and see how that worked out for you.
All right. I'll deserve it.
Yes, you will.
Okay. We're actually at the have you read anything good lately? I was just excited because I have a real answer for once.
That is very exciting. Do you want to say what your answer is before I go?
I read Bullet Train. Did not write down the author of that book, so that would have been nice, wouldn't it?
You could take the time to Google it.
Kotaro Isaka. So the movie was definitely more flashy and slick, whereas the novel is much more dealing with like local gangs.
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels much more personal.
I feel like this episode should be the bullet train episode.
Yeah, have I gone too long?
You've gone on kind of a long time.
This is why I don't read anything, because then I talk about it.
I mean, we could cut a lot of it out and add it as a bonus for our Patreon.
All right, so what have you read?
So I had about 9 hours on a plane. On the way there, I started reading The Misfit Soldier by Michael Mamet because he was going to be at JordanCon and I wanted to get my book signed. And on the way home, I was brain dead and did not read a thing.
Good for you.
So I'm about halfway through The Misfit Soldier. It's fun. I'm enjoying it so far.
Fantastic. Well, it is time to discuss Light from Uncommon Stars by Ryka Aoki. To avoid spoilers, skip to.
So we don't cover any major spoilers in the conversation that you're about to listen to, but we do touch on some plot points that will not give away the ending of the book. Like, if you listen to this conversation, you will be surprised and delighted by the end of the book as if we had not told you any spoilers. But there are some minor plot points, so be warned.
Good guys do good things. That's kind of the amount of the spoilers we get to.
Yeah.
I would say. So if that's going to shock you, read the book.
I have a confession to make.
Yeah.
So I have read this book before. I read it when it came out, and I started rereading it for the podcast. I got about 70 pages from the end last night. Thought I will have a couple of hours between the end of work and the beginning of our recording to finish this. And then there was this metaphorical fire at work that took up all of my time. I did not finish it. So I did not finish it, but I do basically remember what happens. It was recent enough and stood out enough in my mind, at least for that. So small mercies.
Well, I did finish it, so I can prop you up for once.
Yes, I appreciate it. And actually, it was funny because I was in a panel. I promised not to talk about JordanCon too much. And this is just a very small aside because I thought it was funny. But I was in a panel about alien invasions. And one of the panelists, Michael Mamet, in fact, mentioned Light from Uncommon Stars in response to a question from someone in the audience about books where the alien invaders get captured by like Earthlings, and this is not like that at all, but he was using it as an example of a book where the aliens are like refugees and not attackers. And I just thought that it was funny timing that here was this reference to a book that we were going to be discussing on the podcast.
Yes, very apropos, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Well, reading this book was a little hard for me. I think the number one issue being expectations.
How so?
Expectations are so important. If you start to take a drink and you're expecting orange juice and you get milk, that's going to be a bad time. And if you start reading a book when all you've heard is, oh, it's so lovely and joyous and sweet, and there's a donut shop that's also a spaceship. And then you open the first page and it's the abuse of a trans girl. And you're like, holy shit, what is this?
Yeah, there are definitely sweet moments in this book, but it should come with a content warning for transphobia because Katrina experiences a lot of it.
And just straight up abuse. I understand why the sweet moments outshine the horror that she goes through, and I think that is overall definitely one of the strong points of this novel. But oh my god, stop telling people how sweet it is. What the fuck?
Yeah.
It takes a long time to get there.
If you're going to talk about how sweet it is, yes, do temper expectations.
Oh my god. The beginning of this book was so hard purely because of that. I was just like, what is going on? And it was very emotional and moving, even in those very hard moments, maybe because of those very hard moments. But like, holy shit. I was like, goofy hijinks with donuts. That took a little while.
Yeah. That kind of shock is hard to overcome.
I think if I had known, just expectations. It is overall sweet. I agree with that. That's just not a good way to describe this book to someone who might be considering picking it up.
Well, that's probably on me for not giving you a more balanced view of what to expect.
I would love to blame it all on you, as you know, but you're definitely not the only person who has described it that way.
I don't think that it's all on me. I think I focused on the donuts and the food, not the sweet relationships.
You were right, though. The food. Oh, man.
Reading this book makes me hungry.
I might force Daniel to take me to dim sum this weekend.
Yeah, there is so much excellent description of food in this book in a way that a lot of books don't have. It feels, I wouldn't quite go so far as to say like another character, but it's consistent.
Food is such an important part of culture, and so much of this book is dealing with immigrants in specifically Southern California, at least in this case. And their experiences there are so tied to their food and how the white people, locals, do white people get to be called locals? Interact with their culture via that food, right? I mean, there's that whole bit about a Chinese restaurant who has like the best of some like very home style dish, and they constantly have to tell white people, no, we don't have egg foo young. And so through those very vivid descriptions, you get this sense of importance that really underscores the feeling of having something familiar in a place that isn't.
Yeah, and I also think it helps cement the location in the book in a way that like you know where you are, and you don't get that in every book.
Absolutely. I don't know how much of it you experienced, but there were a couple of places that I recognized.
I mean, when Katrina starts out in Oakland, so I recognize those bits. The specific things in SoCal were not familiar, but the feeling of them was. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. The ambiance. I was going to say I have spent approaching 0 time in Los Angeles, so most of this book is nothing like familiar or personal to me. But I mean, they go to Westminster, they talk about Long Beach, and so those more like southern and eastern areas I definitely know. And then the suburbs of Los Angeles and the suburbs of Orange County are indiscriminate in some areas.
Similar enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe that Aoki lives in Southern California, and you can tell.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. They talked about Little Saigon, which is where I grew up. In Orange County. And it did make me really want pho.
Yeah, boy, I just want to go out and eat basically everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first time that I read this book, I did buy myself a box of donuts.
Good for you. I considered it, and then today, happened.
Boy, do I know today happens.
Yeah. All right, we have our sense of food and how that leads into our sense of location and also culture and being displaced, but also welcomed into a location. But something that I had not heard about this book was how much of it has to do with music.
There is a lot of music. So I'm going to say that part of that is on you for not reading backs of books.
Okay, fair.
You cannot argue with me. It is very evident on the front flap that this book deals a whole lot with music.
Maybe I introduced that poorly. It was not the surprise of the music that bothered me. Knowing it was going to be there was not going to improve my experience at all.
Right. But again, with the expectations, I feel like if you had expected it going in, even if music isn't your thing, you probably would have tolerated it a little better.
I think it's just, I don't know, the moments in this book that describe a character's experience making music. Also, this is mostly making music, not listening to music. Oh, there's some listening as well.
There's listening involved.
Yeah. But I would say the most grandiose passages are when someone is making music. The characters experiencing their emotions around making music. Of course, I can get that. I'm not a heartless person. Like, just because I don't feel that way making music doesn't mean it's impossible. But this book also spends paragraphs at a time describing the sound of a passage of music. And I don't care.
I think that's a you problem.
It is, but I can't be the only person in the world who doesn't care.
No, but you're the person that I'm talking to right now.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I just skipped them. It was fine. It was easy to skip. I was like, are we getting to anything actually happening? Okay, great. Now I'm back in. Maybe that's why I could read this book in a day and a half.
no, I actually disagree with you a little bit there, because I do enjoy the music bits. Like, I'm not a music person. I don't have an ear for music. I have no talent at music. You do not want to hear me sing, but I still enjoyed those passages. And this book is just quick to read.
Okay. I still skipped those parts.
Sure, but
not all of them. I tried. I'd say for the first half of the book, I read them. And then I was like, oh, this really is just jerking off about music for 2 paragraphs. I'm done.
That's not how I would call it.
But I'm not wrong.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. But
no.
we're just going to go in circular arguments if we try to argue this point. So,
and then there's a very important part of this story where listening to music actually triggers memories in people, and it's like they're re-experiencing them. And I think that was supposed to be magic, but that's not really explained until the very end, and then just by like a sentence. So I had to spend this entire book going, who the fuck listens to a piece of music and suddenly relives a buried piece of their childhood? That's not a thing.
Yeah, but this is a book with demons and aliens. Like, yeah, you can just suspend your disbelief about it, that not being how music works in the real world.
But they told me that the demons and aliens were demons. If that was supposed to be magic, I should have known that.
Can you not just think, okay, so this world is clearly not like our own. There's this thing that works differently when the music is good enough.
If the characters weren't so shocked every time it happened, maybe.
It didn't bother me.
Who cares? I know the answer is a ton of people, but not me. So don't read this book if you don't care about music. It's very hard to get into.
And do understand that there will be lots of transphobia that Katrina experiences. It's not a sweet love story.
Right.
It's not entirely a sweet love story.
I feel like the transphobia is dealt with, though. Like, the story is about her reclaiming her power. And so by the end, you're like, yeah, Katrina. Whereas the music, you just have to be on board with.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that statement.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that you are more not on board than most people.
That's probably true.
Because you're so not a music person.
God, how many piano lessons do you have to get forced into before you're allowed to just say, I hate it?
Well, see, I feel like this is probably because you were forced into so many piano lessons that you have this.
Oh, no, it was the violin is what it was.
And this book is all about violin.
The whole book is about how the violin is such a good thing.
Yeah, so I think you're bringing your own emotional trauma and baggage to this.
But I'm allowed to, goddammit. Fuck the violin.
Sure, you're allowed to, but you have to be honest about it.
I got there. Fuck the violin.
I have to confess that the violin is one of my favorite instruments. It sounds so pretty.
It's fine. Yeah, it's nice. I never want to play it ever again.
That's valid.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, I listen to music. Okay, I'm not a psychopath. I just have zero interest in the creation of music.
I'm pretty sure we've talked at length on this podcast about how much you like Christmas music.
Yeah, hey, yeah. But also classical music. Like, I like listening to it, but I also hate like any live music that I was not expecting. Like, oh, I have made people leave if someone starts playing guitar at a bar. I'm like, no, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah, that's so much the opposite of my mindset. I love live music. Like, I find the creation of music very interesting. I could never do it, but I just think it's fascinating.
Gross.
Sometimes we're very alike and sometimes we are very different.
Yeah. I remember taking music classes as a adolescent, young child through adolescence. And every single person said, "You're going to be so grateful for this someday." Fuck you. No, I'm not. That was a waste of time. I'm glad that other people like it. Leave me out of it.
I'm sorry this book has brought up all of your trauma.
It really has. All they'll talk about, like, oh, you have to make sure the bow is up or down. Fuck no. Really, this was just a bad book for me, I think. The donuts were nice. I want to eat a donut. How's that? Let's talk about donut. That's the problem, though. Donuts were like 5% of the book.
No, I would disagree. I think
compared to the violin.
No, hear me out. I think the violin is 70% and donuts are about 30%.
Okay. There were some very interesting conversations about like consciousness and AI that I would say didn't have a hard answer, but treated it as, hey, this answer's good enough. Stop worrying about it. And I loved that. That was great. I really liked a lot of this book, except for the 70% of it that was about the violin.
I'm sorry. I should have remembered that you had unresolved issues with your violin lessons when I suggested we read this.
They're resolved. The resolution is I hate it.
Okay.
Hate can be an ending.
I should have remembered you had issues with your violin lessons.
One very wonderful thing about this book is that we have our alien refugees who have taken up shop in a donut bakery.
Literally taken up shop.
Yes. They run the donut bakery. Donut shop.
Yes, donut shop.
But I didn't want to use the word shop that many times in a sentence.
Should have chosen a different turn of phrase then.
Residency. They've taken up residency in a donut shop. There we go. I got there.
It does kind of make it sound like they're squatting in the donut shop.
They purchased a donut shop. And they are both running the donut shop and converting it into a space gateway. And it leads to some very excellent lines, such as, "No time for silliness. We have a donut to calibrate."
That is a good line.
That was delightful.
You also have a note here about Sunglasses Lady and Donut Lady.
Yes.
Which is the nicknames for two of the main characters. For Shizuka is the violin teacher and the sunglasses lady, and Lan is the space refugee and the donut lady.
There's something so absolutely relatable and charming about giving a dumb nickname to someone like Sunglasses Lady or Donut Lady. And the fact that obviously, so this book is in close third person, and you get moments from Shizuka's perspective about meeting the donut lady, and then you get moments from Lan about hoping to see the sunglasses lady again. And that was very heartwarming. This book is very heartwarming.
And it's cute because even after they know each other's names, like there's still that usage of their nicknames in the book. So it's not like it stops once they meet each other or once they introduce themselves to each other.
Absolutely. Aoki uses those nicknames so well. It's usually in moments after they've had a conflict because, holy shit, their relationship is so well done. It's not, like, this is not a romance novel. It's not about them, but we see them, like, clashing and then coming together and then, oh, that turned into a euphemism in my head and it wasn't intended to be one. They are not dating the whole time, but we see that they're interested and it ebbs and flows.
And they definitely come into conflict with each other, and their relationship comes into conflict because of things they do or don't do.
But because of the plot as a whole, right? I would say their relationship sort of reflects the plot in that way.
Yeah, I would say that it parallels some of the other aspects of the plot, but it also doesn't feel unearned.
Oh, definitely. No, that wasn't to say that the romance plotline felt derivative.
Right. I didn't think that was what you were saying.
Okay. But the listener might have.
Yeah.
And then these very cute nicknames from when they were enamored with each other but didn't know each other yet. Aoki uses them when they're on the cusp of saying, yes, we have this problem, but I want to see her to get through it. Like, I think it's almost always used when one of them is reflecting on how flawed the other one is, but they want to meet with them and work through it anyway. And that is so sweet.
Yeah, I really do like the relationship.
It doesn't take up that much page time, honestly, overall, but it is a really solid through line of the plot.
Yeah.
Well, Lan, the donut lady, as we mentioned, is an alien refugee fleeing an intergalactic war that we hear a little bit about throughout the novel. And we get some really beautiful parallels between her experiences and Earth refugees. Earth refugees, specifically Asian Americans in Southern California, people fleeing war and then making a place for themselves through food is what we hear a lot of in this book, although obviously that's not the only way.
I thought I would have something in response to that, but I don't, because it's true.
You can just agree with me.
Yeah. I do. I think you pretty much covered it.
It reminds me of that possibly anachronistic story about why there are so many Vietnamese nail salons in Southern California. Supposedly, some movie star met a young woman from Southeast Asia who did her nails, and she was like, "You're great at this. I'm going to help you set up a franchise and bring everyone over so they can do this too." And that feels very much white saviory, which makes me think it's not real.
Yeah, I've heard that story or a variation on that story, I think.
I'm sure I told it wrong, but it's not true, so who cares if I told it wrong?
Yeah, I cannot speak to its truthfulness. But yeah, and Shizuka, before Shizuka knows that Lan is from outer space, she mistakes her for an Earth refugee, someone from an actual place on Earth.
There are a lot of conversations about immigrants. Again, I'm going to just keep specifying in Southern California because A, that's what I know. B, that's what the book was about. And C, then if I say something wrong, I was just being specific. It's fine. But we also see Italian immigrants with the Italian family who runs a violin repair store. And that plotline, I would say that Lucia is another main character, although maybe like a B plotline.
Yeah.
She's not as involved with the main plot, but she pops up a little bit.
I wouldn't call her a main character. I'd call her like a secondary character.
She gets a lot of page time.
She does get page time.
Like, she's the B plotline. She's not part of the main story, but we see an awful lot of her. And we get her struggles with specifically her family legacy, which is repairing musical instruments and how male-centric that has always been.
But like that's the whole struggle. Lucia has been conditioned essentially all her life. She's been told that like this is men's work, that the men in the family do this. Like it's not safe for young girls, it's not safe for women because they deal with some unsavory things of a supernatural nature.
Well, I don't think they explained it so explicitly. They just said it's not for girls. That I think it was implied.
It was implied. You're right that they don't come out and say it like that, but it is implied in the book that that's part of what they're like, why their reasoning is that it's not for her.
I don't think Lucia understood that. I think
no.
To her it was just, you fucked up by being a girl.
Yes, I agree with that. And so like a big part of her plot line is her coming to the realization that actually, no, she can carry on this family legacy and she can pass it on to her son. And her son, who is uninterested in it until he saw his mother like really own it. Now her son is like, well, yeah, my mom's doing it. And now she's happy doing it.
I think very specifically, he had seen his grandfather do it and his grandfather was an asshole. He never wanted to be like his grandfather, but he's interested in being like his mother. Yes. Which I think is very sweet. And that kind of empowered her to take on more of this work. It wasn't until her son was like, but you're really good at this, that sort of made her interested in taking this on. And I hesitate to say it was a man thing. And I think it was more of her progeny thing.
Yeah, I don't think it was him being male, like his support as a male person that made her feel like she could do it. I think it was the support of him as her child.
Yeah, I agree.
But also, I think that support, if it had come earlier in the book, would not have mattered as much to her because she was not in the right mindset. Like, she had not accepted it herself that she could do this work. And so it wouldn't have mattered if he supported her until she had gone through like this revelation and this growth.
That was really one of the beautiful moments for Shizuka, who she's the queen of hell. That's her like nickname in fancy violin circles, and also not her actual role. She's not the queen of hell, but she does damn souls. But she absolutely wields her influence for good. And one of the moments that we see that is her just steamrolling over Lucia.
Yeah.
Lucia, who thinks she can't repair a violin because she's not a man, and Shizuka just saying, "Oh, you're going to? Great, thanks, goodbye."
I saw you repair this super fancy violin when you were 8, even though you weren't supposed to, so you're doing my violin now.
And she does that a few times in various ways. I feel like we haven't talked about Shizuka much, who I would say is definitely, I mean, so we have Katrina, the main character, I would argue.
Yes.
The runaway trans girl who leaves home and gets picked up by Shizuka, an world-renowned violinist and violin teacher. There are some complications. See Queen of Hell. And then also Shizuka has a big old crush on Lan Tran, the owner of a donut shop and also captain of a spaceship. See, when you describe the book that way, it seems so sweet and whimsical. And that's the problem. And then you have to add in also a lot of this book has to do with Katrina like feeling like she's subhuman. So get ready for that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of transphobia that doesn't come out when you describe the book like that, which I think is an accurate description of the book, right? But because even though this is like, there are sci-fi elements with the starship captain plot and there are fantasy elements with the demons, this is still a book that takes place in the real world, more or less.
Yeah. I could never use the word magical realism to describe it because that has a specific meaning, but I don't think it would be wrong.
Yeah. And Aoki has a different book that I would describe as magical realism. So I think that that's a genre that she's familiar with and frequents often. But this book is still very much set in a modern world, and our modern world has a lot of transphobia in it and is not a nice place to trans people. And you really experience that through Katrina's story. She goes through some horrible things because she's trans, because she's queer.
Is she? Okay, I know. Okay. She describes herself as queer, so obviously she is.
Yes.
But, okay, this is just me not knowing how labels work. But she's a girl who likes boys.
I think she's queer because she's trans.
Okay, I misunderstand how those words work then. So I thought if you were a girl who likes boys, that makes you straight. She can be trans and straight, or I guess being trans puts her into the queer realm.
My understanding is that being trans puts her into the queer realm, but she is a straight woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Words are weird. All right, let's move on.
Words are weird. Yeah.
That's not the point.
That is not the point. So we've established that this world is horrible. She goes through some horrible things. But one of the things that I actually really like about it, not about the world, obviously the world has problems, but about the book, is that even though Katrina experiences a lot of transphobia, and the people that I would consider the antagonists of the book are not transphobic, and so the transphobia is more of a setting thing and not I really don't know how to phrase this well, but it's not.
It's more like an amalgamous force that she has to deal with.
Yeah.
Versus the actual like plot of the book.
Yeah, like the people who are actively against her are not the people who are transphobic and who are doing harm to her because of that.
And it's very interesting because obviously she doesn't defeat transphobia. At the end of the book, she's just not like, yeah, I punched transphobia in the face and now it's gone forever.
If only.
It's much more of an internal struggle where she learns to listen to the people who support her and ignore the transphobes. There's a very wonderful scene where they go to the mall. Shizuka and Katrina go to the mall, and Katrina is dwelling on all of the shitty people. And Shizuka is like, well, what about, that person who flirted with you, or that person who was nice to you, or that person who, like, gendered you correctly? And Katrina realized she hadn't even noticed them because she was dwelling on all of the assholes. And so her plotline with transphobia feels more like Katrina conquering the world, not specific people, I think, right? Is kind of what you're saying?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Whereas the actual antagonists are also anti-transphobia. Is that a sentence? Is that a word?
Yeah.
Because they're annoyed that she's getting shit on for being trans because they want to shit on her for other reasons.
Yeah.
And the transphobia is getting in the way.
Which I thought was wonderful. There's a scene.
Yeah.
I don't think it's spoilers to talk about the scene in general, right?
I don't think so, particularly, no.
Okay. So there's a scene where they're at a music, not competition, but
showcase,
yeah. And the MC of this competition is an asshole and misgenders Katrina. And this person, who I would consider to be an antagonist because she really wants to be Shizuka's student, and Katrina is Shizuka's student, so she doesn't like Katrina because of that. Like, she shouts, "She's a girl," and you can so clearly hear the, like, "you idiot," because this person, she just wants to hear the music because she wants to shit on Katrina for the music.
I think that's explicitly in the text. Her teacher hears her say, like, "Just let her play. Why are you stalling?" afterwards, or something to that effect. And it's amazing how someone who's against you can still be affirming in a different way.
Yeah.
Just seeing you as an equal. If she's a rival, that makes her an equal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's something that for all that the transphobia is horrible in this book, that's something that I really appreciate about it.
And is it a spoiler to say that, like, the book has a happy ending?
I don't think that's a spoiler. I mean, technically, yes, it's a spoiler, but I don't think it's a bad spoiler.
And I think that's why this book is described with such warm and fuzzy phrasing, because the feeling it leaves you with at the end
is warm and fuzzy.
Yes, it's all of those things. But you have to get through the shit to get there.
Yeah.
And that makes it even better, right? Katrina, you don't have to earn being a person, but she fucking earns her happy ending.
Her character growth feels very rewarding.
Yes, absolutely. There's also some really wonderful things around sex positivity. Even that started a little rough at the beginning. Katrina does some sex work and has a hard time, but eventually is showered with praise and affirmations, and that was very nice to read.
Yeah, I mean, it again, like, it felt like a very grounded, real world description of how these things go, which is not always happy, but it did feel real. And it, again, made that journey for her as well feel rewarding.
It's almost like a fairy tale in some ways, right? Like, here's this young woman in a shitty situation, extremely shitty situation that a lot of real people are in. What if we give her a fairy godmother who's actually the queen of hell trying to steal her soul?
You know, when you describe it like that, yeah, I could see it as a fairy tale, a modern day fairy tale.
Absolutely, because she just gets whisked away out of a park, and it's more interesting than a fairy tale. Fairy tales are interesting, you know what I mean? Like, there is that undercurrent of Shizuka is not actually looking out for her best interests, except, of course, she is. Mm-hmm. That's not a spoiler, because I called from page, 2 that she was going to have a redemption arc, okay? But yeah, the idea that when you're going through this and at your lowest, someone will see the talent in you, or not just talent, just like the value in you as a human being, and fix everything, seems nice.
And Shizuka definitely, like, for all that she has an ulterior motive, at least at the beginning, she definitely fixes everything. Like, she gives Katrina a stable home. She gives her a way to practice music. She gives her a way to put her videos, her performances online, which is something that's really important to Katrina.
And her cam work online.
And her cam work.
Like, she was just like, yeah, you do you. How do you think I got a Jaguar?
She pays for her hormones. Like, she covers everything.
I mean, she's a fairy godmother, 100%.
Yes.
Who should read this book, Sarah?
You should read this book. Well, I was going to say if you like donuts.
That's a bad idea. No.
But
if you like violins, you should definitely. Or like playing music, the creation of music. You would really like this book.
Yeah, I think if you want a book that is very rewarding, despite some of the harsh realities of the world that this book starts out exploring, and you like creating music, you'll probably like this book. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fiction Fans.
Come disagree with us, and me, if you like the violin. We're on Twitter and Instagram at FictionFansPod. You can also email us at fictionfanspod@gmail.com. We're also on TikTok and Mastodon, and what are the other ones?
We are technically on Hive, but we haven't checked our Hive account in a long time.
But we're there.
But we're there. The one problem with disagreeing with Lily about the violin, which you should disagree with her about, that's fine, is that if you contact us on Twitter and Instagram, you are actually disagreeing at me.
All right. Come disagree with me on TikTok. Come at me. Let's do this. I'm going to learn how to do TikTok just so I can fight with people about the violin.
On that note, if you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and follow us wherever your podcasts live.
We also have a Patreon where you can support us and find our show notes and some other nonsense.
Thanks again for listening, and may your villains always be defeated. Bye.